1969 was a year of turmoil and unrest. Vietnam War protests were occurring across the country. For Toledo football, Frank Lauterbur was heading into his 7th season. Expectations were high. People were predicting how good the 69 team would be. As good as the 67 team, or better? The reason for the speculation started in '68. Word was getting around that Lauterbur and his staff had recruited very talented players. Coached by Jim Flynn, these freshmen racked up impressive wins, beating everyone but the University of Michigan. People were taking notice. Ken Kratz, senior kicker, watched these freshmen develop.
Watched the freshmen practice and then come over and scrimmage the varsity, and here was a freshman kid that would come over there and give the varsity a hard time. You could see that, the quality was there.
The kid hailed from a small town, Portsmouth, Ohio. As quarterback for his high school team, he never lost a game. It was an omen for things to come. The kid, Chuck Ely, would be the starting quarterback for the '69 Rockets, only after long hours of deliberation by the coaching staff.
I never was in any of the meetings, but was told by a number of his assistants that there were some knockdown, drag-out arguments about who should start at quarterback. I think Frank recognized the talent that Ely had, but coaches can be extremely loyal, and Steve Jones was his quarterback and had been a good quarterback, and he was a little reluctant to go with a new one. But
the decision was made. Sophomore Chuck Ely would be the Rockets' starting quarterback. The Rockets eased through their first 2 games, soundly defeating Villanova and Marshall. Their first test came against Ohio University, the preseason pick to win the MAC. Mel Long, defensive tackle for the Rockets, and the only consensus All-American selection in MAC history, recalls the game and Ohio's quarterback.
I remember a few times when I was rushing the quarterback, he'd stand there and he just looked down. I'd be right in his face, he just looked downfield like I wasn't there. So I said, I'm going to get him for that. Then the next time I rushed and he'd just stand there, he'd look around, just looking, and I'm storming toward him and he'd throw the ball. I said, I'm going to get him for that. The next time he dropped back, he's looking downfield. I remember I caught him under the chin with a forearm, flipped him over. That was the end of that.
And I can still remember up in the old press box, Barney Francis needling the people from Ohio University as his score mounted, and Barney says, you guys better take a good look at these guys. He says, most of them are only sophomores, and we're going to beat your you-know-what for the next 2 years.
The final score was Toledo 34, Ohio U 9. Next up for the Rockets were the Falcons of Bowling Green. Everyone wanted to beat UT's rival, who had won 4 out of the last 6 games. One man, Dr. William Carlson, president of the university, was leading the Beat BG fans, and he had a unique motivational speech for the team the night before that game.
He asked me if he could talk to the team. I called the team over, and then he said for me to leave, and I walked away. And I heard him laughing and everything, and he came back and got in the car, and as he got in the car, he motioned for me to come over, and he said, you know what I told him? And he said, I asked him if they liked you as a coach, and he said, yeah. He said, well, if you don't beat Bowling Green tomorrow, I'm going to fire him. He said, that isn't too harsh, is it?
The game was played at Bowling Green. The Wind Tunnel, as the stadium was nicknamed, was living up to that reputation. In the closing minutes of the game, Bowling Green went up by 2 points. The score was 26-24. Toledo got the ball on their own 10-yard line with 49 seconds to go. The man we now refer to as the Wizard of Oohs and Ahs knew he could get the Rockets into field goal territory. But Bob Simmons, a BG defender, almost ended the drive.
Donnie Fair had a pattern that he runs across the middle. And I dropped back and made the read and threw the pass, and Bob Simmons came from the outside back towards the middle where it was, and the ball hits his hands and slides right through, and it's an incomplete pass.
Well, I had my doubts at first, because we had such a long ways to go, and I knew that what I was capable of doing, or at least a reasonable chance at it, and golly, we were 90-some or 80-some yards away with a minute or less than a minute to go, and so it's going to take a big play, and Donnie Fair made the big play, and knew enough that when he caught the ball, to, instead of running around, to drop to the ground and call a timeout and give me a chance.
Jerry Kyle, who has been broadcasting Rocket football since 1962, was calling the game that day and still thinks about that kick and the wind.
And I think about this every now and then, how the wind was coming out of that south end zone, and the ball is up, and the wind was coming so hard. Once it got over the goalpost, the wind was actually blowing it back toward the goal line.
And some say that stopped when I kicked. Maybe the good Lord was with me and it held back on the wind when I kicked. I was more or less almost afraid I was going to get hurt because everybody was coming over there and jumping around and going crazy, and
Jim Taylor covered the Rockets for the Blade and interviewed the team after the game.
And afterwards, Donnie Fair, who caught through those passes, said, if we were ever going to doubt Chuck Ely, that day is gone. We would never doubt him, ever.
Curtis Johnson, a senior defensive back for Toledo, who would later play 9 years for the world champion Miami Dolphins, believed that game was a turning point for the Rockets.
It was, I think it was one of the games that really made our season because we really didn't play well. And when you don't play well and you win, that makes a difference in your season.
The Super Softs, as the team was tagged, racked up impressive wins. The final 2 games of the '69 season, Toledo shut out both Dayton and Xavier. The University of Toledo Rockets were undefeated MAC champions for the first time in school history. Toledo was invited to the Tangerine Bowl in Florida to play Davidson.
We didn't really know what to expect. It was a learning curve for all of us. And we were pretty intense. We had intense practices. We came out of that game and totally destroyed them.
It was a different experience for Lauterbur and his quarterback.
I'm going around the night before the game, and Ely said to me, did I tell you my latest dream? See, he had a thing going with me. He used to always say, the reason I'm so good is I never have bad dreams. I'm always the hero in my dreams. He said, I always dream great things happen to me. So he said, Coach, have I told you my latest dream? I said, no, what's this? He said, all right. He said, it's the 3rd play of the game. And he said, they came up and they walked that outside linebacker or that outside safety up, and he said, I check off into an option to the left. And he said, we're right on about our own 45-yard line. He said, I duck inside and I go 55 yards for a touchdown. 3rd play of the game against Davidson. They jump in that 6, they walk the safety up, he checks off, he goes 55 yards for a touchdown on a keeper. Came off to me, and he's laughing. I looked at him and I said, look, after the game, let's both go to Las Vegas. We're on a roll right now. We don't want to lose it.
Toledo beat Davidson to win the Tangerine Bowl 56-33. The 1970 season began where the '69 season ended. Another win. By the middle of the season, Toledo had steamrolled over 7 opponents. Defense was outstanding, allowing a total of only 35 points in those 7 games. Toledo shut out both BG and Western Michigan. The 8th game was against their nemesis, Miami University. Dick Strom was in his first year as defensive coordinator for the Rockets. Strom believes he saw the best game Chuck Ely ever played.
Fort Miami was ahead in the 4th quarter, 13-7. Chuck Ely takes the football. Our defense had to get it back. He told the defense, you get the ball back, we'll win the ball game. The defensive team got it back. Chuck took the ball, and we were in 4-down territory no matter where we went because we had a score to win. It was late in the 4th quarter.
So we hold them and they kick. And we get the ball in about our own 40, and Chuck, 7 plays later, Chuck's in the end zone holding the ball up, and it was it. That was the game. He came over to me and he tossed me the football, and he said, Coach, I told you it'd be a cakewalk.
Toledo had clinched their 2nd consecutive MAC title with 3 games to go in the '70 season. They went on to beat Northern Illinois, Dayton, and Colorado State to continue the streak, which had now reached 23 victories. Toledo had reason to be proud. The Rockets were undefeated and MAC champs for the second straight year. The Rockets ranked first in the nation in total defense for the second straight year. And the team was invited to the Tangerine Bowl to play William and Mary. Toledo blew them out 40-12. Frank Lauterbur had produced 2 undefeated seasons. He was at the peak of his coaching career at Toledo, and he decided to leave after the 70 season, accepting the head coaching position at Iowa. To the fans, his players, and everyone associated with Rocket football, he left a legacy and a tradition.
As a motivator, Frank Lauterbur is maybe the best I've ever seen. He could get more out of players, who didn't have maybe as great talent as some other players, than anybody I've ever seen.
It's the young men that played at that time. If you talk to most of them, they have a lot of respect for what he did and what he was trying to do with them as far as individuals, plus being players as well.
I think this is the art of being a coach, convincing people they can do things that they don't think they can do.
Frank was very hard-nosed, very tough, but very fair. He expected a lot out of you, and he got a lot from you.
The dumbest thing I ever did was leaving Toledo. But you're going to take the shot that like I told the players always. When I was younger, you used to go to the amusement park, or they would have those outfits come in, for your street fairs, and they'd have the merry-go-rounds, and they used to have a brass ring that went around. And if you got on one of the outside horses there as it went around and reached up, you could grab a brass ring and you got a free ride. And I used to say, you got to grab the brass ring, see. You don't play this game unless you realize you're somebody special. Not just anybody can play football. This is why it's such a game that I think fires it up and everything, because it really is a game that is tough. And you have to realize that you're going to hurt, and you're going to have to go through a lot of punishment, kind of. It's a thing, and somebody saying, well, why do you want to play a game like this, But you love it. You love it.
Following Lauterbur's resignation, John A. Jack Murphy accepted the head football coaching position. From 1963 to 1969, Murphy had been an assistant coach for Lauterbur at Toledo, so he knew the kind of team he was inheriting and what they had to live up to for the 71 season.
It was a tough transition because I think it was a tougher transition for Jack. Jack had to come into a situation where by now we had built up credibility, being undefeated as sophomores and juniors. We were going into a senior year with Jack, and if we had lost a game, which had to be in his back of the mind, it would sort of be a reflection on the coaching, because we shouldn't have lost a game coming through that experience.
The super sophomores were now the super seniors. The team was receiving tremendous national attention. Everyone was watching. Would the streak continue? Their first game was against East Carolina, and it was a romp. Toledo won 45-0. Apparently, the magic was not broken. Next up, a very tough Villanova team. The team prepared all spring for this game.
They were a big, strong team, and we did a lot of preparation in terms of a preseason getting ready for Villanova, because we knew it was going to be a very difficult game. It could be one of those games that ends the streak, and as seniors going in, we did not want that to take place.
It was 7-7, and I stood on the sidelines with the idea that I was afraid the streak was broken at that point, because we were down, I think, less than a minute to play, and we were a long way away from scoring. We were probably on our own 20.
Everybody in the huddle, when we came out with the last series, got a little gun shy, and this is, okay, we got to come up with something here, Chuck. It was kind of one of those type of things. And I said, well, don't worry, we'll get down there. And I remember going in the huddle, and I think that the play was something I changed it. I fixed the whole new offense almost on one play. Not too many people know this, so you get the inside scoop. We had a play that basically was to, I suppose, a roll one way and throw the ball that way. My wide receiver, who was Glenn Smith, was on the right, and I said, Glenn, you just go straight down the field. I said, everybody blocked their normal blocking scheme. I'm going, instead of to the right, I'm going to the left and to draw the secondary over. And I said, you just go, and I'll throw the ball down there.
He, first of all, he scrambled for about 30 seconds, it seemed like, and he just threw the ball. I had to throw it 35, 40 yards in the air. Glenn made a great catch. Chuck made a great throw, of course, but George Keim came in, kicked his first college field goal that we won 10-7 against a good Villanova team.
With their new head coach, Toledo continued winning. They soundly defeated their next 3 opponents, including Bowling Green. Western Michigan was up next. If the streak was going to end, it could easily have been this game. The Rockets were down at halftime.
And we came back in such a fashion, just bang, 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 and Joe Swartz had a tremendous game running the ball, and the passes clicked and everything happened right, that some of the players came at the game and says, you know, you guys keep on going. I said, you know, you got a heck of a team. And
the Western coach, Bill Doolittle, I know you probably remember him. Bill Doolittle said, I think God was throwing some of those passes. He said he had to have some help somewhere.
Toledo beat the Broncos 35-24. They continued to steamroll over their opponents, beating Dayton and Miami, and pulled out another heartstopper at a very cold Northern Illinois. Their final game of the season was against Kent State University. Hall of Fame running back Joe Schwartz tied Gibbs Stick's record that day by rushing for 5 touchdowns.
Everything just kind of fell into place, and at the time it didn't seem to matter that much, but looking back at it now, I'm kind of glad it worked out that way, because it was kind of nice to send them off, I guess.
Toledo had completed 3 consecutive undefeated seasons, and the team was invited to their 3rd straight Tangerine Bowl to play Richmond. Toledo won 28-3. The University of Toledo had remained undefeated for 3 straight seasons. UT led the nation in total defense for the 3rd consecutive year. The Rockets were 35-0 and ranked 13th nationally by UPI. The honors and accolades rolled in for the streak team. First team All-MAC honors for most of them, All-American honors for several, and Chuck Ely received 168 ballots to be placed 8th for the prestigious Heisman Trophy Award. The streak teams had captured the hearts of the American public, the media, and Rocket fans everywhere. They did what everyone claimed was impossible, but they never thought it was.
We always had the assurance that somebody would pick it up. And it wasn't any one player, it wasn't myself, it wasn't Mel Long, it wasn't Gary Hinkson or Donnie Fair, but it was everybody, somebody came up with a big play.
I just don't think I have ever seen in my lifetime, and I've been around a lot of programs, a better football teams for the conference they played in and for the times in which they played than those teams.
We were talking, I said, one of the things that were very interesting, we came through a very tough era. They had the war in Vietnam, they had the riots in Watts, they had the militancy, the black-white issue became a very big thing, and we had to overcome a lot of those differences and a lot of those problems and put them aside to come together as a football team.
You look back on those years and, you know, you see college football today and everything, you still don't believe that, you know, we went those 3 years without losing a game. You know, it's like a dream.
The university gave me an opportunity to play football, but it gave me an opportunity to get an education, and now I can give some of that back. So I think the most important part of my life, important 4 years of my life was here at the University of Toledo.